This vlog is gonna talk about how bad toxic Filipino culture is. So what can be defined as toxic Filipino culture? Well, there are many things in our own culture that we can define as toxic. But the issues I'll be talking about are issues relating to family, the issue of crab mentality, and the problem of smart shaming. So, let's go! Now, the solutions for the toxic Filipino culture might seem complicated, but it all stems from one cause, and that cause is ignorance. But how is ignorance involved in all these issues? Well, according to my folk, it's because all of these traits stem from being ignorant in one way. Family issues show ignorance of how a person matures when dealing with in an argument with an older relative. It shows that they don't treat the topic that seriously when it comes to depression or religion. They'll assume things and ignore the actual context.
Now, before talking about these examples, it should be known that just because the topic is toxic Filipino culture, it doesn't mean that these issues apply to everyone or that this is only exclusive in Filipinos. But rather, these are issues that are in the society and are a part of toxic Filipino culture as well. There's a lot of family issues in Filipino culture that can be considered toxic, but I'd like to elaborate on just a few of them. One of the major issues is when a person isn't allowed to defend him or herself when being punished by any older relative, because they'll consider it as talking back or being rude, no matter how calm you try to defend yourself. That's always considered bad or disrespectful, and if you respond, it's just invalid. Another big issue to talk about is how ignorant families can become when it comes to certain topics such as religion or depression. When it comes to depression, they usually assume the causes of these are from simple things such as drama or overreacting to things, and then they'll just dismiss the issue altogether without considering the person himself. When it comes to religion, or more specifically, the topic of atheism, families tend to view this as a negative thing. Since we are a Christian country, we'll see atheism as a bad thing. And some people associate it with worshipping the devil. Another issue in toxic Filipino culture is crab mentality, which is basically when someone has the motto of, if I can't have it, neither can you. And they'll drag other people down if they fail, and gloat it over others when they succeed.
However, crab mentality shows ignorance through their own sense of pride. Because they'd rather win it all and let others win. Because if someone else wins, they'd bring them down. They'd find the negatives. They don't want to lose. Shows how out of control their competitiveness can get. It shows how out of control their pride can get.
According to an article I read from fact.ph that talks about signs of crab mentality, they talk about characteristics of people with crab mentality like being arrogant and treating others as people inferior to them. They'd rather blame others for mistakes than themselves, and they'll act like smartasses. Now, these traits can be seen in real life and online. Personally, I see these mentalities especially in competitive games like LOL, Dota, CSGO, anything people play with a team. You'll see this mentality come up often. One of the best examples is their attitude towards losing. If they lose, they won't blame themselves, but they'll blame everything else. Part of the game, aims design, their teammates, everything that they can, as long as it's not themselves. Now, if they don't blame their teammates for their mistakes, what they'll do is play the victim and blame their team for making them play bad. Now, I'm speaking from experience on this type of behavior. I've seen people act like this online, and I know people who are actually this type of person. How they'll just blame everyone but themselves. And I'm not excluding myself. I'll admit that I can act like this from time to time. But this mentality of blaming others is common in our culture, and it's a problem that's more or subjective to the person themselves rather than the society.
Finally, let's talk about smart shaming. Smart shaming is ignorant to how much words can affect other people. Since they don't know that even if you intend this as a joke, people get afraid to do these things that you shame them for or make fun of because they don't want that thing to repeat again. So they'd rather hide it or ignore it altogether. This is more common in teenagers since they just do this for the sake of making a joke, but they don't know how much this can affect someone, especially if they're the victim of this case. The victim doesn't want to do this anymore since they don't want to get made fun of. They don't want to be teased, they don't want to be laughed at, and so they'll hide the talent. And if this talent could help them in their adult life, it wouldn't be there because they're too afraid to show it.
Smart shaming is a big part of how people treat each other in this age and can be considered as bullying to some extent. People who are victims of smart shaming are also victims of crab mentality to some degree, since people who tend to smart shame others do it in spite and to demean their skills and hard work. Other people affected by this are people who usually speak English a lot, as some people joke about getting a nosebleed in order to demean how a person talks. Now this becomes a big issue since it discourages people to do better. Because if they try to do better, they'll just get teased for it. They'll get made fun of. And so, they'll end up falling for peer pressure and they'll eventually do the same thing to other people.
Now, how can we solve this issue? Well, since this does come from ignorance, the best way to solve it is to inform people. The best way to solve it is to raise awareness of the problems, but not in the usual way that we just shame them for these problems. Yes, venting can work, but it just encourages them to hide it. You don't want to fight fire with fire, with the issue of smart shaming, where they'll just hide it. What you need to do is show them the extent of these issues, how this can affect a person. Write articles, make a short film, make videos, just spread awareness to the point that you're not shamed. You're not treating them like monsters. Because in the end, we're all human. We're not perfect. This video is far from good. If we raise awareness to how much this can be a problem, how much this can affect other people, maybe they'll change. But the last part of it's only maybe because culture changes. Just like how the format of this video keeps changing to random places, turns into random topics. It's because like culture, they'll change. And that doesn't mean just the positive parts of culture. Even the negatives can change. What we consider normal for now can be considered toxic in the future. Just like what is toxic now, was considered normal back then. Views change, which is why we should raise awareness, so we can see how bad these parts of our culture can get. And maybe in the future, what we consider toxic isn't as bad as we consider toxic now. Until then, I do hope that awareness can help people solve these issues. And that's all I have to say.